The tow truck driver was already backing up to my grandfather's 1967 Mustang when I stepped outside that morning. Two men in official-looking uniforms stood on my driveway, clipboards in hand, pointing at my car like it was some kind of criminal evidence. "Sir, you need to move away from the vehicle," one of them barked at me. "This car is being impounded for HOA violations." I felt my world tilt sideways. HOA violations. I had read every single page of those documents before buying this house. There was nothing about classic cars, nothing about driveway restrictions, nothing that would give anyone the right to take my most precious possession. But as I stood there, watching these strangers prepare to steal the last connection I had to my grandfather, I had no idea I was about to uncover the biggest scam in my neighborhood's history. And I definitely had no idea that my two German shepherds were about to show these fake cops exactly what real training looked like. 6 months ago, I thought I had found paradise. The house sat on a quiet street in Maplewood Estates, with a wide driveway perfect for working on cars and neighbors who waved instead of complained. After years of cramped apartment living, I finally had space for my grandfather's 1967 Mustang Fastback. That car meant everything to me. Grandpa had bought it brand new, drove it for 50 years, and left it to me when he passed. Every Saturday morning, I would roll up the garage door, pull out my tools, and spend hours under the hood. The rumble of that 390 V8 engine was like hearing his voice again. The neighborhood seemed perfect for car enthusiasts. I had seen classic Corvettes, restored Camaros, and even a few hot rods parked in driveways without any issues. The HOA documents I received during closing mentioned standard restrictions about commercial vehicles and abandoned cars, but nothing that would affect my weekend hobby. My two German shepherds, Rex and Titan, had settled into the new routine beautifully. These were not ordinary dogs. I had adopted them from a retired police K-9 trainer who specialized in executive protection work. They were incredibly intelligent, perfectly disciplined, and absolutely devoted to protecting our home. Most neighbors assumed they were just well-trained pets, but their background went much deeper than anyone realized. On that Tuesday morning in early October, I was cleaning the Mustang's chrome bumpers when the first official-looking vehicle pulled into my driveway. A white SUV with magnetic signs that read HOA Compliance Division stopped behind my car, blocking it in. Two men stepped out wearing navy blue uniforms with badges and clipboards. The older one had gray hair and a permanent scowl. The younger one looked like he spent more time at the gym than reading actual regulations. "Good morning, sir," the older man said, his tone anything but friendly. "I am Officer Martinez with the Maplewood HOA Enforcement Division. We have received multiple complaints about unauthorized vehicle storage on your property." I looked around confused. Unauthorized vehicle storage? This is my car parked in my own driveway. According to HOA regulations, classic vehicles require special permits for driveway display, the younger officer said, consulting his clipboard. "Your vehicle is currently in violation of Community Standards Code 47B. I had read those HOA documents 3 times. There was no code 47B, there was no mention of classic vehicle permits. But these men looked official, sounded confident, and had badges that gleamed in the morning sun. "I am going to need to see those regulations," I said, trying to keep my voice steady, "because I do not remember reading anything about classic car restrictions." Officer Martinez handed me a laminated sheet of paper with official-looking letterhead. "These are the updated community standards, implemented last month. All classic vehicles must be stored in enclosed garages or removed from the property within 72 hours of notification. The document looked legitimate, but something felt wrong. The formatting was slightly off. The language seemed different from the original HOA papers, and the signatures at the bottom looked suspiciously similar to each other. "What happens if I do not comply?" I asked. "Vehicle impoundment and daily storage fees until compliance is achieved," the younger officer said. "We are trying to maintain property values for all residents." As they drove away, Rex and Titan watched from the front window. Both dogs had remained perfectly calm during the encounter, but I noticed their alert posture and focused attention. They were assessing a potential threat with the same intensity I had seen during their protection training demonstrations. That night, I spent hours researching HOA regulations online and calling the community management company. Something about those officers did not add up, and I was determined to find out exactly what was happening in my neighborhood. My research that night revealed the first crack in their story. The Maplewood HOA Management Company had no record of any Compliance Division officers. The woman on the phone seemed genuinely confused when I described the encounter. "Sir, we handle all enforcement through written notices and certified mail," she explained. "We do not have uniformed officers, and we certainly do not impound vehicles. If you received a legitimate violation notice, it would come directly from our office." I pulled out the laminated document they had given me and examined it under a magnifying glass. The more I studied it, the more obvious the deception became. The letterhead was a poor photocopy, the signatures were identical, and the regulation numbers did not match the official HOA formatting system. 3 days later, they returned with reinforcements. This time, 2 SUVs pulled up, and 4 men in matching uniforms stepped out. They brought a clipboard full of additional violations and a much more aggressive attitude. "Mr. Johnson," Officer Martinez said, "your 72-hour compliance period has expired. We are here to facilitate vehicle removal." "I spoke with the real HOA management company," I replied. "They have no record of you, no record of these violations, and no authority to impound anyone's vehicle." The younger officer stepped closer, his hand resting on what looked like a radio. "Sir, you need to understand that interfering with official HOA business is a serious matter. We have the authority to involve local law enforcement if necessary." "Then call them," I said, crossing my arms. "I would love to have real police officers verify your credentials." For just a moment, I saw uncertainty flash across their faces. It was barely perceptible, but I caught it. These men were not used to being challenged. "We will be back tomorrow with a tow truck," Martinez said. "If the vehicle is not removed by then, it will be impounded at your expense." After they left, I called 3 different towing companies in the area. None of them had any contracts with the Maplewood HOA or any organization called the Compliance Division. More importantly, none of them had been contacted about impounding a classic Mustang. That evening, I started documenting everything. I set up a security camera system with multiple angles covering the driveway and street. I photographed their vehicles, recorded their license plate numbers, and wrote down every detail I could remember from our conversations. Rex and Titan had been watching these encounters with increasing interest. During the second visit, both dogs had positioned themselves at strategic points near the front door and windows. Their body language was calm but alert, exactly how they had been trained to assess potential threats without appearing aggressive. I spent the next 2 days researching online forums and local news sites. What I discovered made my blood run cold. There were dozens of similar stories across the metropolitan area. Classic car owners, antique collectors, and motorcycle enthusiasts all reported encounters with fake HOA enforcement officers. The pattern was always the same: official-looking uniforms, legitimate-sounding violations, and threats of immediate impoundment. Most victims either moved their vehicles or paid bogus compliance fees to avoid confrontation. But a few brave souls had fought back and discovered the truth. These were not HOA officers. They were criminals running an elaborate vehicle theft operation. They targeted valuable classic cars, created fake violations to justify impoundment, and then sold the stolen vehicles through underground networks. The most disturbing part was how sophisticated the operation had become. They had professional uniforms, official-looking documentation, and even fake tow trucks with company logos. Most victims never realized they had been robbed until it was too late. I found posts from at least 12 different victims in the past 6 months. A 1969 Camaro SS, a restored 1965 Thunderbird, a pristine 1970 Challenger, and several vintage motorcycles. All had been impounded by fake HOA officers and never seen again. The total value of stolen vehicles was approaching $500,000. These criminals were not just stealing cars. They were destroying people's dreams, family heirlooms, and decades of restoration work. As I read story after story of heartbroken collectors, I realized I was not just dealing with a personal problem. I was potentially the next target of an organized criminal enterprise that had been operating with impunity for months. But unlike their previous victims, I had advantages they did not know about. I had discovered their deception before they could execute their plan. I had documentation and evidence of their fraud. And most importantly, I had 2 highly trained protection dogs who were about to play a role these criminals could never have anticipated. The next morning, I began preparing for war. I spent the entire weekend becoming an amateur detective. My dining room table disappeared under stacks of printed forum posts, photographs of the fake officers, and detailed maps of their previous crimes. The scope of their operation was staggering. Through careful analysis of victim reports, I identified at least 15 different classic car thefts across 3 counties. The criminals had been operating for almost a year, targeting high-value vehicles in upscale neighborhoods with minimal security. They specifically chose areas with legitimate HOA restrictions, making their fake violations seem more believable. Their method was brilliant in its simplicity. They would scout neighborhoods for valuable classic cars, research the actual HOA regulations, and then create fake violations that sounded legitimate enough to avoid immediate suspicion. Most victims complied without question, either moving their vehicles or paying bogus fees. The fake officers had multiple sets of uniforms and vehicle magnets for different neighborhoods. Sometimes they were HOA Compliance Division, other times Community Standards Enforcement or Property Management Authority. They adapted their story to match each neighborhood's actual management structure. I found their pattern of operation through careful timeline analysis. They typically made initial contact on Tuesday or Wednesday, created urgency with 72-hour compliance deadlines, and executed the theft on weekend mornings when most neighbors were inside. They avoided holidays and community events when more people might be watching. But their biggest mistake was targeting me. Unlike their previous victims, I had spent years working with highly trained protection dogs. Rex and Titan were not just pets. They were retired police K-9 specialists with extensive training in threat assessment, perimeter security, and controlled aggression. I had adopted them from Detective Sarah Chen, a 20-year veteran of the Metropolitan Police K-9 unit. She had personally trained both dogs for executive protection work before they aged out of active duty. These animals could detect threats, assess danger levels, and respond with precise, non-lethal force when commanded. More importantly, they had been trained to work as a coordinated team. Rex specialized in perimeter control and early warning, while Titan focused on close protection and threat neutralization. Together, they could secure an area and contain threats without causing permanent injury. On Monday morning, I contacted Detective Chen and explained the situation. She was immediately interested, not just because of the dogs, but because vehicle theft rings were a high priority for the department. "These guys sound like professionals," she said during our phone call. "The uniform deception, the fake documentation, the systematic targeting of classic cars. This is not some amateur operation." She agreed to coordinate with local police to set up surveillance and gather evidence. But she also warned me about the dangers of confronting organized criminals. "Michael, these people have been operating for months without getting caught. They are confident, they are prepared, and they might be armed. If you are going to do this, you need to do it right." We spent Tuesday afternoon reviewing tactical options. The plan was straightforward. Let the criminals attempt their theft while recording everything, then use the dogs to contain them until police arrived. The key was timing and coordination. Rex and Titan would be positioned strategically around the property before the criminals arrived. At my signal, they would move to containment positions without appearing aggressive. Their training allowed them to block escape routes and control movement without actual physical contact. Wednesday morning brought the expected phone call. Officer Martinez informed me that a tow truck would arrive Thursday at 10 a.m. to impound my vehicle. His tone was more confident than before, suggesting they had never encountered serious resistance. "Sir, I strongly advise you to cooperate with this process," he said. "Interfering with official HOA business can result in additional fines and legal complications." "I understand," I replied, keeping my voice neutral. "I will be here when you arrive." That afternoon, I contacted 5 different neighbors and explained the situation. Most were shocked to learn about the fake officers, and several volunteered to serve as witnesses. Mrs. Patterson, a retired teacher who lived directly across the street, agreed to record everything from her front window. By Wednesday evening, everything was in place. The security cameras were recording. The neighbors were informed. Detective Chen was coordinating with patrol units, and Rex and Titan were ready for their most important mission since retiring from active duty. As I sat in my living room that night, looking at my grandfather's Mustang in the driveway, I felt a mixture of anger and anticipation. These criminals had terrorized my community for months, stealing irreplaceable family heirlooms and destroying people's dreams. Tomorrow morning, their crime spree was going to end. Thursday morning arrived with perfect weather for justice. Clear skies, mild temperature, and excellent visibility for the security cameras that would capture everything. I had been awake since 5 a.m., running through the plan one final time and making sure every detail was perfect. Detective Chen arrived at 7:30 a.m. in an unmarked vehicle, parking 3 blocks away where she could coordinate with patrol units without being seen. We tested the radio communication one last time, confirming that backup would arrive within 90 seconds of my signal. Rex and Titan had been given their preliminary commands an hour earlier. Both dogs were in what I called assessment mode, alert and focused, but appearing relaxed to outside observers. They positioned themselves at strategic points around the property, Rex near the front door and Titan by the side gate. Mrs. Patterson waved from her front window, confirming that she was ready to record everything. Two other neighbors had also agreed to serve as witnesses, though they would remain inside for safety reasons. At 9:45 a.m., I moved my grandfather's Mustang to the far end of the driveway, positioning it where the security cameras would capture the best angles. To any observer, it looked like I was simply making room for the tow truck, complying with their demands. The white SUV with HOA Compliance Division magnets appeared at exactly 10 a.m., followed by a professional-looking tow truck with legitimate company logos. Four men stepped out, all wearing the same navy blue uniforms and carrying clipboards. Officer Martinez approached with his usual confident swagger. "Good morning, Mr. Johnson. I am glad to see you have decided to cooperate with the compliance process." "I want to understand exactly what is happening here," I said, keeping my voice calm. "Can you show me the specific HOA regulation that requires impoundment of classic vehicles?" He handed me the same laminated document from before. Community Standards Code 47B, as we discussed previously. Your vehicle is being impounded pending compliance verification. I studied the document carefully, then looked directly at him. This is interesting because I spoke with the real HOA management company. They have no record of Code 47B, no record of your department, and no authority to impound vehicles. The younger officer stepped forward aggressively. "Sir, you need to step away from the vehicle. Interfering with official business is a violation of municipal ordinances." "Then I would like to see your municipal authority," I replied. "Show me your police commissions, your department identification, and your legal authority to seize private property." For the first time, I saw real uncertainty in their faces. They were not used to victims who asked detailed questions or demanded proper documentation. "Look, buddy," the tow truck driver said, "I am just here to hook up the car. You want to argue with these guys, that is your business." "Actually, it is everyone's business," I said, raising my voice slightly. "Because these men are not HOA officers. They are criminals running a vehicle theft operation." The transformation was immediate. The fake professionalism disappeared, replaced by raw aggression. Officer Martinez stepped closer, his hand moving toward what I now realized was not a radio, but possibly a weapon. "You are making a big mistake, friend," he said, his voice dropping to a threatening whisper. "We have been very patient with you, but that patience is running out." This was the moment I had been waiting for. Their masks were off, their true nature exposed, and they were about to commit multiple felonies in front of multiple witnesses and recording devices. "Rex Titan," I said quietly, "perimeter protocol." Both dogs immediately moved to their assigned positions. Rex positioned himself between the fake officers and the street, while Titan moved to block access to the backyard. To the criminals, it might have looked like the dogs were simply moving around the yard. "Now you are threatening me on my own property," I continued, speaking clearly for the recording devices. "You have presented fake documentation, impersonated HOA officials, and attempted to steal my vehicle. I am calling the police." "You are not calling anyone," Martinez said, reaching for his radio. "Tommy, get that car hooked up now." The tow truck driver started moving toward the Mustang, but I held up my hand. "I would not do that if I were you," I said. "Because in about 30 seconds, this property is going to be surrounded by real police officers, and my dogs are trained to make sure nobody leaves until they arrive." Martinez laughed. Your dogs, what are they going to do, bark at us? I smiled. Why do you not try to leave and find out? The moment Officer Martinez took a step toward his vehicle, Rex moved into position directly in front of the driver's door. The dog's posture was calm but unmistakably blocking, his intelligent eyes focused on the fake officer's every movement. "Get that dog out of my way," Martinez demanded, his voice rising with panic. "He is not my dog right now," I replied. "He is a trained security professional doing his job." The younger officer tried to circle around toward the tow truck, but Titan smoothly intercepted him, positioning himself between the man and the vehicle. Both dogs were displaying textbook containment tactics, controlling movement without showing aggression. "This is ridiculous," the tow truck driver said, starting toward his cab. "I am getting out of here." Rex immediately shifted position, placing himself directly in the man's path. The dog's stance was relaxed but absolute. There was no getting past him without physical confrontation. "What kind of attack dogs are these?" Martinez shouted, his professional demeanor completely gone. "They are not attack dogs," I explained calmly. "They are protection specialists. Rex and Titan were trained by the Metropolitan Police K-9 unit for executive security work. They are not going to hurt you, but they are also not going to let you leave until this situation is resolved." The fourth criminal, who had been silent until now, pulled out his phone. "I am calling for backup." "Go ahead," I said. "I already called for backup 20 minutes ago." As if on cue, the sound of sirens began echoing from the distance. The fake officers looked at each other with growing panic as they realized their situation was deteriorating rapidly. "You set us up," Martinez accused, his face flushed with anger. "I defended my property against criminals," I corrected. "There is a difference." The younger officer made a desperate move toward the side gate, but Titan was already there, blocking his path with the same calm professionalism. The dog's training was evident in every movement, controlled, precise, and utterly effective. "How are they doing that?" the tow truck driver asked, genuine amazement in his voice. 12 years of specialized training," I replied. "Rex handles perimeter control, Titan manages close protection. They can maintain containment for hours without breaking their positions." 3 police cars turned onto the street, their sirens growing louder. Detective Chen was in the lead vehicle, followed by 2 patrol units with full emergency lighting. "Gentlemen," I announced, "I would like you to meet some real officers." The fake officers made one final desperate attempt to escape. Martinez lunged toward the street, while the younger officer tried to climb over the fence. Rex and Titan responded instantly, moving to intercept without breaking their training protocols. Rex positioned himself directly in Martinez's path, forcing the man to stop or risk collision. Titan smoothly blocked the fence climber, using his body to create an impassable barrier. Both dogs maintained their calm demeanor while completely controlling the situation. "Stay back, you mutts," Martinez screamed, but his voice betrayed his fear. "They are not going to hurt you," I said again, "but they are also not going to let you leave. That is what they were trained to do." Detective Chen and the patrol officers approached the scene with weapons drawn, taking in the surreal tableau of 2 German shepherds calmly containing 4 panicked criminals. "Michael," Detective Chen called out, "are you all right?" "Perfect," I replied. "Rex and Titan have everything under control." The lead patrol officer looked amazed. "I have never seen anything like this. Those dogs are maintaining a perfect perimeter without any aggression." "That is because they are professionals," I explained. "Rex, Titan, stand down. Let the real officers handle this." Both dogs immediately relaxed their positions, moving to neutral stances while remaining alert. The criminals were finally free to move, but now they were surrounded by armed police officers instead of trained dogs. "You are all under arrest," Detective Chen announced, "for conspiracy to commit vehicle theft, impersonation of officials, and attempted fraud." As the handcuffs clicked into place, Martinez glared at me with pure hatred. "You have no idea what you have done." "I stopped a criminal operation that has been terrorizing this community for months," I replied, "and I protected my grandfather's memory." The tow truck driver, who was clearly just an unwitting accomplice, looked stunned. "I had no idea these guys were criminals. They hired me for what I thought was a legitimate repo job." "We will sort that out at the station," Detective Chen said kindly. "But right now, we need to process this scene and collect evidence." Mrs. Patterson emerged from her house, camera in hand, beaming with excitement. "I got everything on video," she announced. "Every word, every movement, every moment those dogs showed those criminals who was really in charge." As the fake officers were loaded into patrol cars, I knelt down to give Rex and Titan the praise they deserved. Both dogs accepted the attention with the quiet dignity of professionals who had just completed a successful mission. "Good boys," I whispered, scratching behind their ears. "Grandpa would have been proud." The arrest of the fake HOA officers was just the beginning. Within hours, Detective Chen's investigation had uncovered a sophisticated criminal network that extended far beyond what anyone had imagined. The search of their vehicles revealed professional-grade equipment, multiple sets of uniforms for different neighborhoods, laminated fake documents for dozens of HOA communities, and detailed surveillance photos of classic cars throughout the metropolitan area. They had been operating like a military unit, with assigned roles and coordinated strategies. The most shocking discovery was their target list. Over 200 classic cars, antique vehicles, and custom motorcycles had been photographed and cataloged for potential theft. The estimated value exceeded $2 million, making this one of the largest vehicle theft operations in the state's history. "These guys were not just stealing cars," Detective Chen explained during the debriefing. "They were running a complete enterprise. Surveillance, documentation, fake uniforms, legitimate-looking tow trucks, and even connections to underground auction houses where they sold the stolen vehicles." The investigation revealed that Martinez, whose real name was Robert Fletcher, had an extensive criminal history including fraud, impersonation, and vehicle theft. His operation had been active for over 2 years, with confirmed thefts in 7 different counties. The younger officer was actually Fletcher's nephew, recruited specifically for his ability to look professional in a uniform. The other 2 accomplices were hired muscle, brought in when victims showed resistance or asked too many questions. Most importantly, the evidence I had collected proved crucial to building the prosecution's case. The security camera footage, witness statements, and recorded conversations provided an airtight timeline of their attempted theft and fraudulent impersonation. Within a week, 12 additional victims had come forward with similar stories. The pattern was always the same: fake violations, threats of impoundment, and pressure to comply or pay bogus fees. Several victims had actually paid hundreds of dollars in fraudulent compliance fees rather than risk losing their vehicles. The case made headlines across the region. Fake HOA cops busted by security dogs became a viral story, with news outlets fascinated by the role Rex and Titan had played in stopping the criminal operation. "I have been a police officer for 20 years," Detective Chen told the reporters, and I have never seen civilian dogs execute such professional containment tactics. These animals performed flawlessly under pressure, maintaining control without causing injury or escalating the situation. The story of Rex and Titan's background added another layer to the media coverage. When people learned that my dogs were retired police K-9 specialists, trained for executive protection work, the narrative became even more compelling. It was like something out of a movie, Mrs. Patterson told Channel 7 News. These criminals thought they were dealing with an easy target, but they had no idea what they were walking into. The Maplewood HOA board issued a formal apology for the confusion and implemented new security protocols to prevent future impersonation attempts. They created a verification system for all enforcement actions and established direct communication channels with the police department. More importantly, they sent detailed warnings to every homeowner in the community, explaining how to identify legitimate HOA communications and what to do if approached by suspicious enforcement officers. The ripple effects extended throughout the region. Other HOA communities implemented similar verification protocols, and police departments began training programs to help residents identify impersonation scams. Fletcher and his accomplices were charged with multiple felonies, including conspiracy to commit theft, impersonation of officials, fraud, and attempted extortion. The prosecutor, District Attorney Maria Santos, called it one of the most sophisticated property crime operations we have ever encountered. These criminals preyed on people's respect for authority and their desire to avoid confrontation, she said during the press conference. They counted on victims being intimidated and compliant. They did not count on encountering someone who was prepared to fight back. The preliminary hearing was scheduled for the following month, with the full trial expected to begin in early spring. The evidence was overwhelming, and the prosecution was confident about securing significant prison sentences. But perhaps the most satisfying moment came when I received a letter from Detective Chen, written on behalf of the entire Metropolitan Police K-9 unit. Rex and Titan have brought honor to their profession and their training, the letter read. Their performance in this operation exemplifies the highest standards of police K-9 work. They may be retired from active duty, but they have proven that true professionals never really retire. The letter was signed by every member of the K-9 unit, including Rex and Titan's original training officers. It was framed and hung in my living room, right next to the photo of my grandfather standing beside his brand new 1967 Mustang. As I read the letter for the 10th time, Rex and Titan lay at my feet, contentedly chewing on the special bones I had bought to celebrate their heroic performance. They had no idea they were famous, no understanding of the criminal operation they had helped dismantle. They just knew they had done their job, protected their family, and kept the bad guys from taking something precious. 6 months after the arrests, the transformation of our neighborhood was remarkable. The story of Rex and Titan had inspired a wave of community engagement that nobody could have predicted. Mrs. Patterson started a neighborhood watch program, using the security skills she had learned from observing the investigation. 3 other families adopted retired police dogs, creating an informal network of highly trained protection animals throughout Maplewood estates. The local police department established a regular patrol schedule for our area, and Detective Chen became a frequent visitor, often stopping by to check on Rex and Titan's continued well-being. "You know," she said during one of her visits, "the department has received dozens of calls from people wanting to adopt retired K-9 officers. Your story showed everyone what these animals are capable of when they find the right family. The trial of Fletcher and his accomplices had concluded with guilty verdicts on all charges. Fletcher received 7 years in prison, while his accomplices received sentences ranging from 2 to 4 years. The judge specifically mentioned the security camera evidence and witness testimony in explaining the harsh sentences. These defendants preyed on law-abiding citizens in their own homes, Judge Patricia Williams said during sentencing. They violated the basic trust that makes communities function. The evidence presented in this case, particularly the video documentation, leaves no doubt about their guilt or the seriousness of their crimes. The recovered vehicles were returned to their owners, though several had been damaged or modified during the theft process. The emotional reunions were covered by local news outlets, showing elderly collectors weeping as they were reunited with family heirlooms they thought were lost forever. My grandfather's Mustang sat in the driveway every weekend, exactly where it belonged. The chrome bumpers gleamed in the morning sun, and the 390 V8 engine still rumbled like thunder when I started it up for maintenance runs. But the car meant something different now. It was no longer just a connection to my grandfather's memory. It had become a symbol of community resilience and the power of standing up to bullies. Children from the neighborhood would walk by with their parents, pointing at the famous car and asking to meet the hero dogs. Rex and Titan accepted the attention with their usual dignity, allowing gentle petting while maintaining their alert professionalism. The story had become part of local folklore. The house with the police dogs was how delivery drivers referred to our address, and the story was told at community gatherings as an example of how preparation and courage could overcome criminal intimidation. I started receiving letters from classic car owners across the country, sharing their own stories of attempted theft and fraudulent schemes. The criminals' operation had been larger than anyone realized, with connections to similar scams in multiple states. One letter particularly moved me. It came from an elderly man in Arizona whose 1955 Chevrolet Bel Air had been stolen by a similar fake enforcement operation. The car had belonged to his late wife, and its loss had devastated him. After reading about our case, he had contacted police with new information that led to the recovery of his vehicle. "Your dogs did not just protect your car," he wrote. "They helped save mine too. Thank you for fighting back when others would have given up." The most rewarding development was the community program Detective Chen helped establish. Called Guardians of the Neighborhood, it paired retired police dogs with qualified families throughout the region, creating a network of highly trained protection animals in residential areas. Rex and Titan became the program's unofficial ambassadors, demonstrating their skills at community events and helping train other families in working with professional security dogs. As I sat in my garage on a recent Saturday morning, cleaning the Mustang's engine while Rex and Titan supervised from their favorite spots, I reflected on how much had changed since that first encounter with the fake officers. The criminals were in prison, the stolen vehicles were returned, and the community was safer and more united than ever before. But most importantly, my grandfather's legacy lived on, protected by two remarkable dogs who had proven that sometimes the best defense against criminals is simply being prepared for them. The rumble of the 390 V8 engine echoed through the neighborhood as I started the car for its weekly exercise run. Rex and Titan's ears perked up at the familiar sound, their tails wagging with anticipation. "Come on, boys," I said, opening the passenger door. "Let's take Grandpa's car for a ride." As we drove through the peaceful streets of Maplewood Estates, I could not help but smile. The criminals had thought they were targeting an easy victim with a valuable car. Instead, they had encountered a prepared defender with professional backup. Sometimes the best revenge is simply being ready for whatever comes next.